Welcome, welcome. Today it's a Lakeland Father's Day special, and I am so excited because today I am sitting down with Kirk Cousins. This is going to be amazing as we get to dive into a conversation with an NFL quarterback. And so as we start and as we dive on into it, I got to start by just calling out the elephant in the room. First off, I'm a Bears fan, and I live in Packer country.
Yeah, you do.
And we're interviewing, a Vikings quarterback. And so let's just
you got the NFC North covered almost.
I know we do.
Except for the Detroit.
So let's just set football aside, at least our preferences. And here's what I can promise you is that, listen, you may not be a Vikings fan, but by the end of this conversation, you will be a Kirk Cousins fan. I promise you that. And so it's going to be really sweet. And so thanks for sitting down with me.
My pleasure. Honored to be able to talk with you.
Oh, it's going to be fun. So let me set this up a little bit. For those who may not know your career, I did a little bit of research to kind of catch up on all your story. And so here's some of your highlights. Played at Michigan State, led your team to some huge wins within the Big Ten. You've been in the NFL since 2012, which, by the way, right there, that alone, unbelievable. To be in the NFL that long.
Yeah,
5
God's
years.
grace.
5 years for the Redskins, 5 years now for the Vikings, 4-time Pro Bowler, Bart Starr Award winner, over 37,000 passing yards. Got a passer rating of 97.8, which I had to do a little bit of research. All right, is that good? And basically anything above 95 considered fantastic. And so outstanding quarterback. You guys had an amazing season last year.
Great year. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was awesome to watch, even from Packer country. It was fun to watch. And so I'm excited to sit down and talk with you. But with all of that said, that's a lot of kind of like the work accolades. But I guess I would say it this way, on top of all that, or I'd say above all that, because that's important stuff. But man, there's some things that I think are actually more important that go above that. And it's stuff like the fact that you're married, you're a father, you're a follower of Jesus.
That's right.
And so I actually want to ask a little bit about those things that I think are actually more important, kind of the above all that. So I want to start there. Tell us a little bit about your faith journey. How in the world did you come to a place of saying yes to Jesus and I want to follow him?
So my dad's a pastor. My parents were both believers when I was very young. So I grew up in a Christian home. So I wasn't going to make it very far in my childhood without having the gospel shared to me. And I remember being about 7 years old and being at church, and my dad shared the gospel to me and my brother. And of course we wanted eternal life. Of course we didn't want to be banished from our Creator forever. So we made the decision then and there that we wanted to ask Jesus into our life. And at 7 years old, there's only so much you can understand about what that means and what it's going to cost you potentially in your life, and the difference it's going to make in your life. And so you go on in your childhood and you're a Christian, and at that time it probably means that you don't say certain words, you try to be a good friend. But it was really in high school, I had a Bible teacher along with my parents who had been shepherding me all my years growing up. And he made the point, this Bible teacher, that there's a difference between being a fan of Jesus and being a follower of Jesus. And that to be a disciple, a follower, is to be fully devoted. And to be fully devoted means that you're putting in work, that you're wanting to grow, that you're making sacrifices, and that when culture goes one way and Jesus goes the other, you got to go with Jesus, even if that costs you something.
Yeah.
And we were challenged to ask ourselves, are you prepared to follow Jesus even when it costs you something? When all your friends in high school or college on a Friday night are going to go do one thing, and that to follow Jesus means you got to go another way, are you going to do that? Or are you just going to go with the friends?
Yeah.
And I made that decision about 16, 17 years old, where I said, you know what? I think I'm going to follow Jesus even when it costs me something. And that's when you truly are giving him your life, because you're really now sacrificing something to follow Jesus. And so I made that decision and went to a major secular university at Michigan State, having come from a smaller town, smaller school. And again, was kind of confronted with that decision on a daily, weekly basis in college. And so that was really my faith journey. And by the time I had made that commitment to walk with God through college, by the time you then get to adulthood, you get married, really the challenge now becomes, like you mentioned, being a great husband, being a great father, because everything in you wants to be selfish, and everything in you, when you're tired from football and you don't have the patience, you don't want to exhibit the fruits of the Spirit. You want to go do what you want to do. And being a husband and a father does not allow you to do that. And so you have to check yourself every day to serve your wife and to serve your kids.
That's so well stated. And I love that, obviously there was this real moment for you where you said, all right, this is me going all in on my faith journey. How have you continued to propel forward in your faith journey? Like, how do you stay going, I'm going to make sure that Jesus wasn't just a priority then, but he's still a priority now. And so how do you prioritize a faith walk, especially in a line of work where it's crazy busy.
Right. I think the spiritual disciplines are so important. You never want to ignore the fact that you need to be spending time in prayer, spend time in scripture, spend time talking with God, listening to God, trying to hear from him, and just have this daily walk with him where it's not compartmentalized to a Sunday church service, but it's a daily living life with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit. And so that, I think, is where it begins. And I think it's also important to find community with other believers. So in a football locker room, identifying who are the guys that want to do the same, and how can we engage together in a Bible study, in a prayer time. And as the Bible says in Proverbs 27, how can we sharpen each other as iron sharpens iron? So having those moments of time together, and then sharing your faith, and finding where guys are at in our locker room in their lives and trying to meet them there and build a relationship. And then when the opportunity is there, to be able to share a reason for the hope that you have, as the Bible says, and
that's right.
and not only share your faith, but defend your faith. And I think all of those practices and behaviors keep you on that narrow path that we all want to be.
Yeah. Man, well stated. So let me talk, you just brought up you doing some Bible studies with guys and things like that. How in the world, let's talk practicality of church.
Right.
What does church even look like for you, especially you got NFL going on in that whole season? I mean, do you open doors, serve on the greeting team, hold babies in the nursery? I mean, how does that even look?
One of the drawbacks to playing in the NFL is the fact that I don't have the same church experience as most people would have, and I think you do the best you can, but I wish it was better than it is.
Yep.
I view not only the locker room as sort of like my mission field, but I also view it as my church, which is a weird dynamic to have. But we have a team chaplain who's like my pastor. We will have chapel service the night before games, so that becomes like my weekend church service where we're going to get fed, we're going to get good teaching, we're going to be gathered with other believers. Unfortunately, we don't bring out the guitars and have worship, but we do have teaching and prayer. And then we will also have a Bible study with our spouses as a group on Monday nights. So also have that time. And then we just started the last couple seasons on Wednesday morning, which is really the beginning of our work week to get ready for the next opponent each week. Wednesday morning at the start of the work week, we get together early, like 6:30 in the morning in one of the rooms here in the building, and just pray. And we just pray for our families, for our marriages, for our ability to parent our kids, but then also for our team, for our health, for the season, for the leaders that lead this team, for wisdom. So we pray, and I think that's a very important discipline. And whatever venture you're in, what's not begun in prayer, I believe, is begun in pride. And so this interview, we started in prayer. Before the camera started rolling, we prayed. And I think it's so important that when you begin your work week, to get together with your coworkers and just say, hey, let's just take 5 minutes out, quietly off to the side, let's get together and let's pray. And I think if you do that long enough, you'll look back and you'll say, wow, I can't believe I ever lived life not doing that. Because it can be so powerful. And then certainly when our schedule allows, I'm at church on Sunday morning or Saturday night at our local church that we do attend. And, it's a big part of the Christian walk is to be among a body of believers. That's something God's very serious about.
Yeah, man, that's well stated. So you got, obviously, God, I believe he's top tier. He's most important. Everything submits to his authority and his will. And then I would say probably that next tier becomes family, a priority. And I know that's super important to you. You actually come from a pretty amazing family. You mentioned your parents as far as your dad was a pastor. I actually knew probably of your dad before I knew of you, which sounds a little funny, but your dad, Don Cousins, pastor, was one of these kind of founding guys and part of the startup of Willow Creek. And in fact, I was telling you at the beginning, I recently heard a podcast where your dad was talking with that still challenged me and is shaping our church. I mean, some of the words he said, I was like, man, it's so profound.
Well, I get it every day. Whether it's a phone call from my dad or an email, I say the same thing. Man, that's really good. I got to tuck that away. I got to save that. So you heard it on a podcast, but I'm getting those every day of my life.
It's unbelievable. And he so speaks into, obviously, Jesus and leadership.
Correct.
And so how did that relationship, was it super tight growing up? I mean, did you have any of these moments as a teenager where you're like, I want to keep my parents at arm's length?
Yeah.
Or how did your dad help form you?
I would love you to be able to ask that question to my dad, but I do think that he was a coach for our sports teams, which was a tremendous opportunity to see him lead, see him be dad, but also in a group setting. And I thought that was very powerful. From our youth baseball teams to even high school football, he helped out coaching some side positions, and I think that was a real blessing to have. I could tell, when I'm 12, 13, 14, 15, my dad's pretty sharp. My dad's pretty wise. And so I probably wasn't your typical teenager who was tuning out their parents. I was a little bit more, what do you think here, Dad? Maybe to a fault, where I probably didn't learn to make my own decisions as much, but very much wanted to get my parents' input, their feedback, their perspective. And still to this day, if I have a big decision, whether it be, business, whether to move to Minnesota, whether it be investments, whether it be hiring somebody, I'm going to call my dad. Nice. And I'm going to say, Dad, what do you think? Now, many teammates in my locker room don't have a dad. They don't have a dad like that who they could call and gain wisdom from. And so it's hard for me at times to understand what that could be like, because my dad is such an integral part of my life that for many people, that's not the case. And, it's one of the greatest blessings in my life to have a dad like that. And so I just really, really, my heart breaks for people who would say that wasn't my story. That's not the case for me. And I think that's where all the more reason to lean into your Heavenly Father, because He is that, and He is that good Father. And if you don't have the earthly one, certainly lean into the fact that your Heavenly Father is there for you.
Yeah. And you, obviously, that was the model to you, was from your dad. And now I'm sure you're sitting there going, you've got 2 boys.
Yeah.
You're probably thinking, I want to do this for my kids. So let me just ask you this question. What is your favorite thing to do with your kids, and how do you invest in your boys?
I love sports. Even though I do it for a living, I still find when I'm in my free time, I want to be out playing sports, basketball, golf, tennis, whatever it may be. And if I can be out there playing catch with them, hitting a tennis ball with them, that's really my favorite thing to do with them. I love to read to them at night. We've made it a rhythm, a routine that every night, many times my wife will keep the boys up because I'm at work and not getting home till later, and to make sure that I can be home and can read to them. They sit on my lap, we read a book, and that's just an understood daily routine for us. That's, I think, a pretty powerful habit to have.
That's awesome. Classic kind of evening moment, kids on the lap. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're still not at an age quite where we can sit still for family dinner.
I was going to say, if they're actually sitting still,
but at some point I would like to think that family dinners will be another very important routine where we can, night after night, spend that time together. They say that correlates with a healthy family quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we have to carve out that time, be intentional about that. But boy, at 5.5 and 4 right now, I have a hard, next thing I know, I look up and I say, why is my one son across the room, the other one over there? And, but at their ages, that's just the way it is, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Just silly, practical parenting. Do you ever get called into like parent-teacher conferences? Is that a thing? Do they say, Mr. Cousins, I need you to work with your son on his spelling test?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We have all those same challenges. One of our boys is a bit of a bull in a china shop, and so he can be pretty physical with other kids.
You're like, I see good things in your future in the NFL.
Well, there's certainly one of my boys. He loves justice.
Okay.
And he wants things done the right way. And if he hears that, there's a certain way to do something, you need to do it that way.
Oh yeah.
And if a classmate doesn't, he thinks it's his job to bring the hammer down on that classmate.
Yeah.
And I have to remind him, no, son, that's for the teacher to handle. It's not your job to police that. And he's kind of law and order sometimes, and we don't need it to be. So we're teaching them the best we can, being patient. But you see how God has wired them each differently.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you want the wisdom to know, okay, it says train a child up in the way they should go so that when they're older, they will not depart from it.
Right.
I believe there are many interpretations to that scripture, but one of them being identify how the child is wired and help them understand how God wired them. And then as they get older, help them walk into a path that will help them to excel based on their wiring. And so I think it's my job as a parent to say, hey, Cooper and Turner, my two boys, you are not the exact same. You're not wired the exact same. That means God doesn't have the exact same plans for the two of you. So we want to help guide you on your path. But at times that means we're going to parent you differently. It will be fair. We're going to parent you fairly, but it won't be the same.
Yeah.
Because you're different people and you have different giftings. And so that will be interesting and fun to discern as we move forward between the boys and my wife and I.
Well, I'm telling you, I got 9 kids. So that's with having that wisdom that you've got right now, even over those young ones, and going, hey, it's going to be fair, but it's going to be different. That's huge. You've hit the nail on the head.
We joke in the locker room, if anybody ever has 5 kids, we say, oh, you got a basketball team now, but with 9, you're a baseball team.
I know. Everyone thinks in terms of the sports team. Yeah, we are. All right. So obviously your boys are super important, but man, so is your wife.
Correct.
And so how do you prioritize your wife? What does dating look like for you? What is what is the way that you invest in her? Is it dating weekly? Is it just a cup of coffee on the back porch? Like, what does the best investment look like?
Well, during the football season, obviously football is so demanding. And I've seen some coaches' wives who have a sign in their house that is part funny, part sad, but it says, we interrupt this marriage to bring you football season. Because that's just kind of the way football season is.
Yeah.
Probably not quite as difficult in that sense for the players as it is for the coaches, but one practice we have instituted in our marriage going back 8 years now is in 2015, my wife and I decided that we were going to be very intentional about practicing the Sabbath.
Yeah.
So for us, Tuesday becomes our Sabbath day. That's the off day in the NFL. Most starting quarterbacks in the NFL would still be coming into work on a Tuesday because they're the starting quarterback and they need to be given their all. But I made the decision along with my wife that we need to take that day truly off from work related to the NFL. And what that has turned into has been a real blessing for our marriage. And so my wife knows that Wednesday through Monday, she may not get as much of me and my time and my attention as she should or as she would like, but she knows Tuesday's coming.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a day where we can go for a walk. We can, spend time talking together, going to a movie, just doing those dates, that kind of a thing, getting caught up. And so having that built-in time has really helped. And I find it interesting that the Sabbath is one of the 10 commandments, and we all agree on the other 9 that we really shouldn't be coveting, stealing, murdering. These are things we should not be doing. But for whatever reason, society today says, well, the whole Sabbath thing, I don't know if is that big of a deal. Yeah. When you look at the other 9 and how big of a deal they are, I think we should just say the Sabbath probably needs to be in with the other 9, and we need to take it that seriously. So we have, and it's been a real positive for our life doing that.
That's awesome.
And for our marriage.
Yeah, that's huge. And so it kind of leans into my next question, but how do you, in the middle of football season, how do you maintain balance? Yeah. So of marriage, parenting, faith, and work.
I think it helps to be intentional about the schedule and certainly look ahead. We sit down in July or August and we say, okay, this is going to be the rhythm on these weeks. If we have a Sunday to Sunday game week, then we know Wednesday, Thursday are going to be really full days for Dad. Dad's going to be coming home later. He's not going to be at dinner. He's not going to be able to get home until it's time to tuck the kids into bed. So that's understood. Friday becomes a day where Dad is going to be home at night and we can have dinner together. And so you kind of plan it out. I think that helps. Saturday for a home game is different than Saturday for an away game where we've got to be flying. So you build in these pockets of time where we know we will have family time or where we know we won't have family time and then plan accordingly. But I really want to be intentional. I think that's a big word when it comes to parenting because if you're not really intentional, you'll look back after a month, a year, 5 years and say, man, where did the time go? And did I really impart what I wanted to in those years? But if you're intentional and you're planning ahead and you have those markers, I think you'll be able to have those checkpoints along the way that say, okay, we're exactly where we want to be with our time spent together and pouring into our kids.
Man, that's so huge. I love that. Just the simplicity of intentionality.
Yeah.
And yet so many people just let life happen as
it's
opposed
not
to
human
being
nature
intentional.
for any of us. I think it does feel like work for me to sit down and kind of think through the next several months and plan out, okay, what are our goals? Where do we want to be at the end of this season with our boys and with their development?
Yeah.
And how do we get there?
Yeah.
And what are the daily habits? And, even things like driving them to school, praying in the car on the way to school to emphasize the importance of prayer and hearing what's on their heart and wanting them to understand more Bible stories and what are some intentional things we can do in a car ride or at the house or reading before bed that enables them to learn these Bible stories. And so you have to kind of begin with the end in mind and say, okay, this is where we want to end up, but how do we get there? It's not just going to happen. I think too many times as a parent, you get tempted to think, well, it'll just happen. They'll get to 18 and we'll have been, present parents and it'll be fine. And maybe, but I think you can get a much better result if there's intentionality and a plan along the way.
Yeah, so good. All right, so let's talk now work, NFL, just because there's plenty of people who legitimately want to know some things. So here's a real simple thing, but all right, you're the quarterback. Every Sunday, Thursday, whatever day your game is on, the stadium erupts. Legit, what is that like? Here's my question really. Is it for you, is it I call that Sunday? Or is it rich every single week? Is there something sweet about it where you're this is still unbelievably sweet?
It's sort of a spectrum of emotions. When I'm driving to the stadium and I know that there's going to be 70, 80,000 people who are, bringing all their energy to that moment, and then millions more watching on TV, there's going to be butterflies. Yeah. So there's some anxiety there that you got to bring before the Lord and say, Lord, help me to kind of calm down and to be able to enjoy this and not feel overwhelmed, and give me the grace to be able to do that. When your name's getting called and you're running out of the tunnel, that's a moment that you realize is a little bigger than your ability to control it. And so that's where, again, it forces you to look up. My dad's often said he feels like God directed his path to become a pastor because it would keep my dad close to God. I would argue the same for the fact that God has led me on a path to become a pro quarterback because he knew it would keep me close to him. Yeah. And so game day does that. Now, when we hit a big touchdown and win the game and we were at home and you got the crowd, yes, it's an incredible thrill, and it's one of those special moments. But those, you can also get humbled pretty quick in front of a crowd too. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. All right. So a little bit about that. Let me ask you this question. What's been your greatest or maybe a highlight day in your career, and then maybe the hardest day in your career?
Well, I'll give you a highlight that comes to mind. Last year, we got down 33-0 at halftime. Yeah. And it was not a good day. And it ended up becoming the largest comeback in NFL history. Yeah. We ended up winning the game in overtime, I believe 39-36. And it was just an incredible moment to have the largest comeback in NFL history, and it taught me so much about resilience and grit and staying the course and not giving up. And when I got home from that game, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize, and it was from Frank Reich. And Frank Reich quarterbacked the Buffalo Bills in 1992 to the previous largest comeback in NFL history. Yeah. And Frank's a follower of Jesus. And so Frank texted me and said, Kirk, I found myself watching the game, rooting for you. Yeah. I was okay with the record being broken, knowing that it would be you, because he said God for 30 years, from 1992 to 2022, countless times allowed that story of having the largest comeback in NFL history to be a way to share the gospel and to tell people about him. Thousands of people, he said, probably came to know Jesus because of using that story in Frank's life. And he said, today, Kirk, the torch has been passed. Wow. And it's now on you. And I got emotional reading the text, because for me, that's what it's all about, is being able to tell people about Jesus and to have this football career mean so much more than just football. Yeah. And so when Frank put that in perspective, that comeback would give me an opportunity to tell people about Jesus and my walk with him, hopefully for the next 30 years, that was powerful. Yeah. Really powerful. And then I'll give you a low light. I remember in 2009, my first year as a starting quarterback at Michigan State, we played at Notre Dame. And I had dreamed of playing at Notre Dame, grew up watching the movie Rudy, and it was just surreal to be quarterbacking in that stadium, living a dream. And on the final drive of the game, down 3 points, we got into field goal range, so we really had a field goal in our back pocket to tie the game and go to overtime. But we were going for the touchdown, and my quarterback coach pointed at his temples and said, be smart, knowing that we had the field goal in the bag. And as you can imagine, the next play I threw an interception. And it cost our team the game. We lost the game, and we had a chance there. Even if I had just taken a sack, thrown an incompletion, we would have had a chance to kick a field goal and tie the game. And I threw an interception. And I remember getting hit on the play and getting up off the turf and pulling grass out of my face mask that I'd gotten driven so hard into the grass. And walking off the field, realizing what had happened and listening to the deafening sound of 80,000 people at Notre Dame Stadium cheering my failure.
Oh.
And I remember one thought, besides, oh no, that went through my head was, thank you, God, that my life is not built on football.
Yeah.
Because if football was my everything, my God, then my life just crumbled.
Yeah.
That was a really bad God.
Yeah.
But if I can build my life on your truth, God, and your word, and I can go by the promises in your word that say that you have a plan and you're not going to waste these types of failures, you're going to use them to accomplish your purposes, I can walk off the field right now, as miserable as it's going to be, and I can face the next day and the next challenge because I know you're there with me.
Yeah.
And so there was a weird sense of, God will use this. I wish he didn't have to have it go this way, but God will use it, and I'm going to have to trust him. And that was 2009. So 15 plus years later, we're still talking about it, and God's still using it.
That's
and I
unreal.
think we all go through those challenges. You know, for me on the football field, it's throwing interceptions that cost us games, but we all have things like cancer and losing loved ones and all kinds of challenges. And so God will use it, but it's our ability to trust him and wait on him that is so challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I love it. Thanks for sharing that. All right, I want to go take another question here, but spiritual temperature in the NFL. And here's what I've been thinking and processing. We talked a little bit, just briefly, about the Damar Hamlin situation that happened this last year. So you got Damar. He basically dies on the field. They bring him back,
Correct.
Jump him, and he gets going. But the players are praying. ESPN commentators are praying live on the air. I mean, there was a different atmosphere this time around. I've seen plenty of injuries in the NFL where usually the commentators say this. They usually go, our thoughts and prayers are with the family, right? But this time it was different, where they stopped saying our thoughts. They just said, now's the time to pray. If you're a praying person, pray. And there was so much prayer that happened in really that week and the following weeks. I mean,
Answered prayer.
And NFL teams are gathering in the middle of the fields, praying before every game for the next week or two.
Right.
What's the spiritual temperature that you're sensing right now in the NFL? Is there a greater openness to God working in these guys' lives? I mean, what are you sensing?
Well, I think there were so many interesting thoughts I took away from that whole experience watching what happened to Damar. First of all, it was only 6 or so months prior, the Supreme Court was hearing a decision on whether or not this high school football coach in Texas should be allowed to pray on his own after a game on a field of a public school. And there was debate that no, he shouldn't. And I thought it was interesting that 6 months later,
here
they're praying on football fields everywhere,
right?
And on TVs and on TV sets. So that was interesting to just see how when there's nowhere else to turn, suddenly prayer becomes okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that we understand that we want to be people who is praying before there's nowhere else to turn. Let's not wait until we get to a place where we have no other option. Let's be people who pray as the first option.
Yeah.
But God talks in Deuteronomy 8 where he talks about, basically, remember me when things get really good for you.
Yeah.
Don't forget about who was the provider and who made it so good for you. It was the living God, not you. And so I think at times in life we get it so good that we forget that it was God who was the provider and the source of all that goodness. And so
did any conversations open up for you, even with your teammates?
Yeah, certainly there's opportunities. We prayed in the quarterback room the first day back at work after that. And, I think that we're always looking for opportunities to share our faith and talk about things and have it be pretty. I think it becomes serious. Guys are starting to start taking things more seriously. But there's always been, whether it was at Michigan State or now in the NFL, there's always been an ability to connect spiritually with people. I think thanks to coaches who open up opportunities, chapel services, a team chaplain. It's been a real positive for me to be able to engage things spiritually in all the locker rooms I've been in.
That's awesome. Kind of follow-up question to to that. Is there a faith network kind of in the NFL? Obviously, you refer to guys that you are meeting with weekly, you're praying with. Are there guys that help propel your faith forward? Or how hard is it to mesh faith and work? Or is that like, no, it's pretty seamless?
I've had people say to me, like, do you pray before games? And I'll say, well, I do pray before games, but I also pray in the first quarter. I pray in the second quarter. I pray at halftime.
Yes.
You know, it's all the time. And I find that it may not be the majority of guys coming to the Bible study. It may not be the whole locker room that wants to walk with Jesus, but God has always provided a remnant of people so that I was never alone. Right. There was always a couple other guys who were really sold out and sharp, and I could do life with them, and usually more than a couple. And so that's always been a blessing. And that's really where I think it starts. And then from there, you just want that number to grow, and you want more guys to come to really not just be a Christian, but to really engage on a daily basis with what it means to walk with Jesus and go from just being a fan to being a true follower. And I think that's the line that not only so many people in our locker room, but really in America, we got a lot of fans of Jesus, but we need more followers, even when it costs them something. And that's where I think, we want to get our teammates and our families and my boys to come to understand.
Good word. All right, so you have a couple NFL records. You just mentioned one of them, but here's two that I just think are huge. You've got the most fourth quarter comebacks in a single season, 8, tied with Matthew Stafford.
I didn't know that.
And then you've got the largest comeback, 33 points. You just mentioned it. Which is unbelievable. But here's what those two things tell me. Both of those lean into comebacks,
right,
where you're down majorly. And so here's the question. Everyone faces kind of moments in life where they just feel completely defeated.
Right.
How do you maintain a positive mindset, or what is your mindset when it seems like your life is defeated or you're way behind in life?
Yeah.
I mean, you have something that's unique that would lean into those two specific records that would be able to rally a team back that clearly you're not losing it.
Well, I think that greatest comeback in NFL history, largest comeback in NFL history, that story allows you to talk about how God is a great redeemer, and that there's a lot of times in life when we all get down 33-0, but God's not done.
Wow.
He's got a story to tell. And I think it has been encouragement to me when I throw an interception to lose a game or break a rib, or I'm getting beat up in the media, which is going to happen quite a bit when you play this position, to be able to say, God's not done. God's got a plan. I believe it's a weakness to get caught up in praise or criticism about yourself, and so you just try to not go in either direction, but just trust that God will provide. God's got a plan, and I got to lean into Him, and He's not done, and He's not going to fail me. And when you can really hold on to those promises, I think it makes a meaningful difference, because the negative is going to come. It's going to happen. And when you believe that God is bigger than the circumstances you're in, you have hope.
It's so good. So you're starting to lean into even some just life lessons, obviously about God, but I want to bring up one that I heard you'd made this statement, and so I want you to try to finish it, this statement of the difference between a boy and a man, which is such a good life lesson here. And every guy needs to hear it. So
the difference between a boy and a man, among many things, would be that boys are going to do what feels right.
Yeah.
A man does what is right.
So where'd you hear that, and how have you kind of lived that out?
Yeah, I think my dad probably shared it with me first, but you've got to know truth to know what is right.
Yeah.
And so you have to go back to God's word to say, well, in the first place, what is right? I got to learn what's right.
Yep.
And God's word has that. And God's word is the playbook for life. We got a playbook on the football field. That's our lifeline. If we don't know the playbook, you're never going to play. You're never going to have success on the field. I would say the same thing of life on earth here. If you don't know the playbook, if you don't know the Bible, if you don't know God's word and what truth is, good luck. I mean, you're going to be just lost. And so I think doing what feels right becomes the default when you don't know truth. And when you're not in the Word, you're just going to end up doing what feels right. And I don't want to do what feels right. That's not, my feelings aren't going to lead me anywhere good. I want to do what is right. And I think that many times what is right is the difficult choice. And what is right doesn't feel right. But if you know it to be right, as a man, you got to step up and do it.
I love, though, that you're leaning into God's Word, because that is the one place that it's the plumb line of what is right. Right. And you got to know it. Let's talk humility a little bit. And maybe you're like, oh, that's a hard subject to lean into, but this is reality. There's only 32 other people on the planet who do what you do, or at least have your position, starting quarterback. And I can imagine that could easily go to your head. And so how do you stay humble?
Well, I think this game keeps you humble because if, as somebody in the airport just yesterday as I was traveling, somebody said, we love that you're back with the Vikings for this next year. And I said, oh, thanks. He said, is it going to be a good year? And I said, it better be, or I'm not going to be back with the Vikings for the next year. So there's a little bit of built into the whole system. You got to deliver. You got to play well. They're looking for your replacement. And so that is going to keep you humble. Yeah. You're never really going to feel like you've arrived or that you're entitled to anything. So I think that's healthy, honestly, but it does make for a more challenging day-to-day because nobody's safe.
Right.
But certainly in those moments where you have success and you start to think that maybe you've got it figured out and that maybe this is getting easier. You have family around you to keep you humble. These guys in the locker room, teammates, they're not going to let me get away with too much.
They keep you humble?
Yeah, I'm just one of the guys. I'm not the starting quarterback and treated with some special attention. They just treat me as Kirk and one of the guys, and so they'll keep me in line as well. And if I ever slip up, they'll let me know. So having big people in your life who aren't afraid to tell you the truth, I think, is important. And I think leaders can get into trouble when they surround themselves with yes men and women who are just going to tell them what they want to hear. I think it's important for leaders to be big enough themselves to surround themselves with big people who can say to them, hey, I think you're out of line. And when you do that, I think it sets up healthy guardrails to go much further than you'd ever go otherwise.
That's good. You're just mentioning your teammates. And so I even had a question for you kind of around team. Obviously, you've got all these guys. They're paid to do their job. So there could be an attitude where you're like, I don't know if this ever exists, where people are like, hey, you just need to do your job. You're paid to do your job, but there's got to be something about camaraderie and teamwork that actually outproduces just getting your job done.
Correct.
And so my question is, how do you help build team, and how have you learned to rely on your team?
It's a great question because in pro sports, there isn't a lot of loyalty, and the message you hear is do your job, show up, do your job. Well, when you only do that, you turn into an independent contractor and a bit of a mercenary, and I don't really want a locker room full of independent contractors. I want a locker room that's a team. And so you have to do both. Yes, I want you to do your job. Yes, I understand that there's not a lot of loyalty in this business. But that being said, let's all go to dinner and let's try to build some chemistry and let's try to spend some time together and get to know each other's spouses. And I try to be a question asker. I find when I read Scripture, Jesus was a question asker. He oftentimes answered other people's questions with a question. Yeah. And he was a question asker, and I want to be a question asker. And so I try to find myself asking questions of teammates and coaches to learn more about them, about their backgrounds, and then be able to lead them because I've gotten to know them and spent time with them. So even tonight after this interview, I'm going to go to dinner with a bunch of teammates, and I think those times are great for building chemistry. And I think in those moments, those fourth quarter comebacks, I'd like to think that chemistry you build even in the off season can account for some of that.
Yeah. It's those relationships really around the dining room table that play off in a huge way.
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think so. I think it builds a camaraderie, and
for sure.
If nothing else, it will make the season more fun because you're doing it with people you enjoy.
At the very least, we love each other.
Yeah, you'll enjoy doing it together because many times it's not what you do in life, it's who you do it with. Yeah. And I think if you can do it with people that you've built a relationship with and enjoy, it makes a meaningful difference.
Yeah, well stated. All right, one last question kind of around life lessons. So you mentioned it, and it is reality. On Monday morning, there's always going to be a talk show host or radio talk show guy who's literally dissecting everything you did on Sunday. And so whether it was good or bad. So the question is, how in the world do you manage, negative self-talk when you know everything's being dissected?
Yeah, it's not easy. If you want to go listen to that criticism, it can take you to a pretty dark place.
Do you ever listen to it, or
it's impossible to not hear some of it?
Yeah.
But what I don't do is go looking for it.
Yeah.
So, I've had to tell family and friends, hey, it'd be better for you to not text me because until you text me, I'm, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
But once you text me,
you're kind of putting me in a compromised
spot. Exactly.
I did.
So some of it is just ignorance is bliss. Yeah. But when you inevitably come across it, you got to give people grace. You got to understand where they're coming from, their perspective. They got a job to do, and quite honestly, you probably could have played better. So let's just call a spade a spade. But certainly you give people grace and you trust the Lord and you do all the things that you know are important, and then you go play. And
how do you protect your kids from stuff like that?
Well, we're just entering that stage. I think to this point they've been young enough that they're not really exposed to that. But last year at preschool, there were moments where you got Packer fans who are coming in and saying, we don't like
darn Packer fans.
We don't like what your dad did in the game, or we do like that your dad did this because it helped the Packers. And so my boys are, as my wife said when we got that feedback that was going on, my wife said, "Here we go." Like, you knew it was coming. Yeah. Here we go. So we talked to them about, first of all, just because other classmates or their parents happen to watch what dad does for a living, that doesn't make dad or you more special.
Right.
So first of all, you're not better than anybody else just because people are talking about what your dad does for a living. So get that straight, first of all. But then second of all, when it does go south for dad, and people come after you, you got to do what dad's trying to do and just rise above it, ignore it, give him grace. And how much that'll get through a 6-year-old's head, I don't know, but we're going to raise them that way, and at some point they'll understand.
Yeah. Yeah, there might be, and I don't know if you've done this, almost coach them like, here's your one-liner.
And that would be a great intentional way to parent them, to say, here's a great response in those moments if it did bother you. But we'll see in the years ahead how that goes.
Yeah. All right, so I've got speed round. Kirk Cousins, are you ready for the speed round? These are like one sentence, one word answers. Are you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Just a few. Any defensive lineman that you're afraid of?
Aaron Donald is hard to beat. He's unbelievable. He can change the game at any moment if you don't have a plan for him.
Yeah, has he hurt you before?
I don't think he's gotten me too bad, but we've played him and he impacts the game.
Really?
He impacts the game absolutely from the first snap to the last.
Nice. Have you ever played dead sick?
That's a great question. I was just watching Michael Jordan with the flu game the other day on The Last Dance, and I thought, I really hope I never have to play that sick. But no, I haven't had to play that sick, and I hope I never have to.
Okay, I was wondering, do they just send you out?
But you do have to play hurt.
Yeah.
You do have to play hurt. So maybe not sick, but certainly hurt, where you're playing in pain.
Yeah. How bad was it? Scale of 0 to 10.
I've had some games in warm-ups where you're throwing and you're like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this today, but you find a way and adrenaline kicks in and your teammates carry you through.
Nice. Is it a gimme that your kids will play football? Or if someone's like, Dad, I want to be a clarinet player, you're like, okay.
I'll be getting them the clarinet and signing them up for lessons and driving them to and from. No, I think I've played enough football for a couple generations, so I'm good with the football thing. If they want to play, great. I'll probably keep them away from tackle until they're in high school and have them play flag. But we certainly play catch with the football, but there'll be no pressure for me to play if they don't want to.
Okay. What's your fondest memory football game of all time? Could be high school, college, NFL, or Turkey Bowl in Grandpa's backyard.
I've always said that high school football on a Friday night in front of your hometown is the best it'll ever get. Yes, I lived the dream playing at Michigan State and playing in the pros, but it never gets better than varsity football on a Friday night playing at your hometown in front of your friends and your hometown family. So I'd probably pick a game from a Friday night in high school back in 2005 or 2006. It doesn't get any better than that.
Nice. Do you do your own shopping?
Very little. Sometimes, but very little.
Do you avoid going out on a Monday if it's been a bad game?
I really just blend in. At times I'll try to wear a hat or sunglasses if need be, but for the most part I just blend in and keep a low profile, and I don't do my own shopping for the most part. For the most part, my wife's handling just about everything, and I eliminate all decision energy.
Nice. All right, you don't have to answer this, so I'm giving you permission. Do you have any dreams post-football?
I do. I got a lot more football behind me than ahead of me. Mm-hmm. So this topic comes into my mind quite a bit in the offseason of what's next and where are we headed. But certainly, I want to take advantage of the fact that when I retire from football, I'll still be young, and that gives me a lot of time and energy to be a dad, and I'm excited about that. So I'll really prioritize coaching my kids, being involved in their life, but that'll still leave some time. I'd like to get a little bit better at golf. I'd like to get my handicap down, but I'm going to really keep an open mind as to what the Lord has planned next. So I'm going to make myself available. I'd like to think that, my calendar will be open, that financially I'll be able to have the independence to see what he wants to do. But then I'd like to think that I'll be in a posture to say, Lord, what do you want?
Yeah.
And be able to step into whatever he has for me. But what that is, I'm not sure.
Nice. All right. Final question, Kirk Cousins. Will you play catch with me?
I will play catch with you gladly. Yes. Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.